I'd now like to introduce Nicole Ostini, who's joining us from Queensland, from Brisbane. And today she'll be providing us with a live workshop using some of her students. And the title of her presentation is called Kinaesthetic Learning in High School. So Nicole, thank you very much for joining us, and take it away.
Hi, welcome everybody. So yes, we are going to attempt to do some type of physical workshop online. So please bear with me. I'm going to ask you to do your first task. And that is because you've been sitting, and I know you've just had a break, but you've been sitting for a while now and all the blood has come down and it's in your bum. So in order for us to stop your brain sending signals to your body that you are actually sleepy, and that because you've been sitting for a while, that maybe you want to actually go to sleep, we're going to stop that process by getting you to stand up. So if you could all please stand up for me. Okay, so in order for this to be a kind of like a real classroom for you, I'm going to introduce...
Well, I don't think it will be, to be honest. Like, I kind of have a sense. What I really...
I think someone's got their microphone on, so if you don't mind just checking that you're muted. Okay, great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to invite some wonderful students of mine, Year 12 students, and they're going to come on and help us to recreate a classroom situation. So firstly, I'd like to introduce class 12, if you'd like to come on board, please. And here they are. Welcome. And shut the doors behind you. Okay, so this is my wonderful little group of class 12. It's not everybody. We're in the middle of rehearsals, so they're already feeling quite theatrical. So what we're going to do first is I'd like you to actually be in our circle. So as you are across from us, you're also within this circle. So the way that I like to start my classes is that we sense into our circle and we just spend a moment to acknowledge, yes, there is another human being standing to my right, and yes, there's another human being standing to my left. And if I was to go around the circle, I know that there's 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that continues on to hundreds as you also join our circle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise where we imagine that there is this golden hoop up in the sky, and we're going to actually bring that hoop down. That hoop represents everything we need right now. If we need a bit of courage, if we need a bit of enthusiasm, if we need a bit of excitement, we're going to bring it down from the heavens and we're going to place it on the ground and we're going to step inside. And when we step inside, then we enter into the learning space. Okay, so I would like you to do this with us. So first off, we make sure we're available. Bend the knees, unfold the arms, and just have a sense of being available. Now, without me leading, we're going to feel the impulse as a group. And as a group, we're going to pick up that hoop from the sky and we're going to put it on the ground. And then we're going to step inside. Okay, so we'll wait for the impulse. Okay, so now we're all in our learning space. Hopefully we've left behind some residue of the playground, our thoughts, the last fight that we had, the last discussion, whatever was going on in the break, and we've stepped into a learning environment. However, we are in a world of emotions and feelings, and we are human beings, and we bring our feelings with us. So I'm going to do a little exercise that just helps me tap in to where everybody in the Zoom, including our circle, are at. And we're going to do it in an exercise of expansion and contraction. So when I'm the most expanded, I'm to the periphery as far as I can go. And when I'm the most contracted, I'm almost like a little ball, you can't see me on the ground. So I want you all to just tell me where you are, how you feel in that journey of expansion and contraction. So just show us, and everybody as well on Zoom, if you could do that, just where you are at in expansion and contraction. Okay, so I can mostly see my own class here, but you will see that there is a mixture from fully expanded all the way down to contraction. Okay, and just let that go. Now what I'm going to do, just to finish this off, I'm not commenting on where anyone is at. I'm not saying, whoa, you're a bit expanded today, or contracted, how am I going to cope with that? Or maybe I've got a whole class that have just come from basketball and they're all out here. But for me, it just gives me a sweet to know, do I have to bring people out more or do I have to bring them in? So that is just something that I can gauge, but I don't want to leave them there. I'm going to leave them hopefully at some type of balance. So we're going to go into a full expansion, everybody. And a full contraction all the way down. And then we're going to come to what we sense is the middle ground. Okay. And now here is where I'll start. So we're tapped in, we've brought everyone into the circle, we've just checked in with where everybody's at. And now what we want to do is we're just going to do an exercise that would be very low on Bloom's taxonomy, memory recall. So we're going to recall information. I'm going to see how much these guys remember of something. It's like revising. And we're going to do our answers in movement. So this is all of us. So what I'd like you to do is your first movement is walking on the spot. Okay, simple. Okay, your next movement is tapping the opposite knee. Good, I think we got that one. And now our third movement is touch your nose and with your opposite arm across to your ear. And then swap and swap and swap. So now we're crossing the midline, so we're also getting a little bit more complicated, more focused. Last one we're going to do. Very simple, shoulder tap. Okay, so the next thing, if they already know that these are A, B, C, and D, this is A, this is B, this is C, and this is D. So I'm going to ask a multiple choice question. And your answer is either going to be the movement of A, the movement of B, the movement of C, or the movement of D. So the question is, and I don't want anybody to move yet, the question is, what is the largest island in the world? Okay, so is it A, Australia? So that is walking on the spot. Is it Australia? B, our movement is crossing our knees over. Is it, what's this one? New Guinea. Is it New Guinea, people? New Guinea? Okay, and C, is it Greenland? Or, last one, D, is it Borneo? Okay. So after 3, you are going to show me your answer. 1, 2, 3. Off you go. Okay. Wonderful. So most people I could see, not so much on Zoom, but in our class, are walking on the spot. That tells me that most people have answered Australia. Okay, so a little bit of a twist here. The real answer is, does anyone remember what that is?
Greenland.
Greenland. Now the reason that is because they don't consider Australia an island as such. It's a continent. It's an island continent. So even though it is it is a large island, it is not the answer to the question. But the point is that in this situation, I got to see just visually everybody's answer. Now, we were sitting down in class and I said to the class, what is the largest island in Australia? Dakota will have his hand up. One out of all my students. Everybody else will be distracted, doing each other's hair, having a little conversation, or they'll feel too nervous to do the answer, or they just won't be engaged. The point of this exercise is that every single person is engaged. So call it a mind break if you like, or just a novelty, but we've already engaged everybody. Now the second thing is that people feel safe because they can just have a bit of a glance around the room, and if they were doing this and suddenly went, oh, everyone's doing this, I might just swap. Okay, so it's a safe environment. I too, as a teacher, can see that exchange. And I know, oh, they're a little bit unsure of this answer. Maybe we need to go over that again tomorrow. And the other great thing about this is that when they go to do it tomorrow, they have a physical movement they're going to remember first, which is, what? Which is this. So their body remembers better. Your body remembers better than your intellect. So when they go to recall that information again, they're going to go, oh, yes, that's right. It wasn't Australia, it was Greenland. Thank you. So this is something that you can incorporate any time in your classes to actually engage your students and get them up. Now, while we're here, I would like to show you, because these guys are going to disappear and have a break, how we close a class. So once we've done whatever we've been working with, we're going to finish with the hoop. So where is the hoop? It's on the ground, and we're inside it. So if we just come back to our circle, step outside the hoop, and then once again, without me leading, we will pick the hoop up and throw it back. So if you do this with me, please. Okay, thank you. Round of applause for our Year 12s. They can go disappear back through the door. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so they're very quietly disappearing. So I want you to do one more exercise while I know you've all probably quickly sat down again. So while you're sitting down, I'm also going to get you to embody something. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see. So I'll just share this here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to an image. And some of you will know this image. I'm sure most of you do. So I'm presuming you can see this. Okay. So this image is a sculpture. And this sculpture, being a sculpture, is not two-dimensional. So what I would like you to do is to actually do this sculpture. So you're sitting down, you're already halfway there, and you're going to try and do this sculpture. Okay, I want you to look at it very closely, and I want you to get a sense of where every part of that body is. I want you to look at the shoulders. I want you to look at the arms, the hands. Where are the knees placed? Where are the feet? What are the feet doing with the rock? And just really focus on that gesture. So it's a sculpture of a gesture. And just spend a moment in there and see what you need to do to really bring that inwardly to life for you. What is happening? What is going on? Okay. So this sculpture, does anyone know who it's by? Okay, so I'm actually trying to get my view to full view. I think it's this one. Okay, so when you're looking at this, what I want you to take note of is a quote by the artist. This sculpture is world famous, and it's world famous for a reason. Now, when the artist was asked, why do you think this was such a famous sculpture? What is it about it? He says, what makes my thinker think is that he thinks not only with his brain, with his knotted brow, his distended nostrils and compressed lips, but with every muscle of his arms, back and legs, with his clenched fist and gripping toes. So that's a picture that I didn't grow up with. My image of the thinker when we were at school was the little pale kid with the glasses who was sitting in the library playing chess. He certainly wasn't a strapping man like that, full of muscles and lots of activity going on and sort of emulating a physical, intellectual prowess. So I think this is really important because this is something that we forget in education. And it is something that we forget in the high school, especially at our detriment. When we start to separate the intellect and go, okay, well, that's it now because we're going into intellect and we don't need to do the other stuff. This would speak otherwise. So I want you to be aware that thinking is not passive. It's not a pale, limp process. Thinking is full of activity. It is full of movement. So these are sayings in our own language. We grip a thought, and I want you to try that. We grip a thought, wrestle with an idea. Okay, so these things are not, you have to bring activity to it. There's will forces that you have to engage with. When you grip something, when you wrestle with something. And this is what is going on when we're thinking. When we're not thinking, there's no movement. We say things like, we still the mind. We bring the mind to rest. And then there's nothing, okay? So while we're engaging in the intellect, and especially in high school, we have to remember that thinking is not just the head. Thinking is from the feet all the way up. And it engages our hearts, our heads, and our will. I just want to show you one exercise that year 10 class of ours, well, actually this is year 10 now, but they did this exercise when they were in year 9. They did this exercise almost 2 years ago because it was first term in year 9. So I asked them, do you remember that exercise you did when you were doing your physics main lesson, when you were doing machines? And they went, yes, we do. And I went, great, can I film it? And they said, yes. So this very, very serious video, I'm going to show it to you. So let's begin.
Suck, squeeze,
Bang.
suck, squeeze, bang. Suck, squeeze,
Bang.
Okay, so very serious. But what the important thing to remember is that that movement was to do with a particular physics main lesson that they were doing. And they are actually moving the pistons of an engine. So they have embodied one of the processes that happens when they're looking at engines. Now, when that comes down to, and I'm going to stop my share for a second because I'm going to bring you to a different video. Share screen again. When we come into okay, so I'm hoping you can, we're back on now, you can see me. Okay, so when I come to the engines lesson, which the first thing that one of the girls said to me when I asked her, do you remember that movement? She said, you know what, Nicole, when we did that exercise and we all laughed and we had fun and we worked out, you know, how we might move the pistons and who would go up and who would go down, it demystified it for me. It actually loosened me up. I was very anxious about working with engines. I felt very nervous about actually, you know, getting in there with the nuts and bolts and actually having to do this. So already she just did some very simple movement, well, a lot of fun, silly, that opened her and got her ready to learn, okay? So here is one of our beautiful students actually doing the main lesson that is pulling apart this engine, and then they put it back together again. Now, there's a lot of research around, you know, girls in STEM subjects. And there's also a lot of research that suggests that a lot of girls like to use movement or dance, and they're comfortable in that sphere. So if you can bring these sort of things into these activities where you know there's apprehension, where you know that there's, I'm going to just switch off because it's not my subject, it's maths, it's physics, it's chemistry, I'm frozen, okay? So any exercise we can do to bring them into their bodies before you start those lessons is going to help them engage. Right, so I'm just going to hopefully get rid of that again. Back down here. Okay. Now I want to show you how this might go a little bit further. So that was a fun exercise. How about when we actually, not just using movement to wake people up or to engage people, what if we're actually using it to learn? So it's helping us to actually learn what is going on in the content. This is an exercise I did at the C conference last year, 2 years ago, where I asked participants, and if any of you are online, hello, thank you, welcome. I had an exercise where they had to create some content through movement, and these guys chose time. So I'm just going to play this for you. I will mute it because there's lots of laughter and background noise. Actually, I'll bring it up because I do. Okay, so I don't know if you picked that up, but what they were looking at first was the movement of the planets. And they took the movement of the planets then into the movement of the clock, or time. So you can see how much rich contextual information students are picking up when they actually have to translate a concept into movement. We're no longer on just the one level of, basic intellect here. We're actually engaging all our senses. This is a very extremely powerful tool for us. I'll show you a maths one. And this one is also from our conference 2 years ago. And these guys, I'll let them introduce what they're going to do themselves. And once again, if any of you are online, hello.
Robin to pay attention to this lesson thing. Don't mind me saying that, Robin. So, today we're going to be discovering the relationship between the circumference of a circle and the diameter of a circle. And we're going to talk about the ratio of that. And, oh, you're looking very pale. Oh my God.
7 spots. 7 spots. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
It's okay. All right. Okay. Now, children.
Let's show them the circumference of the circle.
Yeah, let's make a nice circle, everybody. Okay. Now, Elaine, you can do this. I would like you to stand there. And I would like you to count. I'm going to count with you. Just your footsteps following the circle of their arms all the way around. So off we go. That's 2 to begin with. So 1, 2, because of the one you started.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29.
Excellent. Now, Elaine, well done. I'd like you now to stand in the same place and to walk across the middle. So find the middle point of the circle here, and you're going to walk right across and count your steps. Going from one side to the other. Off we go. 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have another one? No, 9.
So,
4, 8. 8 and a half. All right, 8 and a half.
so everybody, now Robin, watching. So, what we do is we take our original number, which is how many?
29.
29. And we divide it by our 8.5, which was 8.5. Now, Robin. 29 divided by 8.5.
Is it 3.14?
It's very close to 3.140. Now, Robin, do you know what that number might be?
I'm not sure.
Anybody else know? It's pi, and tomorrow we'll tell you all about how it relates to you and your life.
Okay, so you can see how even though, we're working with adults here, how engaging it is to be able to just get up and try ideas on your feet. And the fact is that all of those students will remember it because they've moved it with their bodies. Now, I'll just come back to see where it is first. Looking for my PowerPoint here. Disappeared. Okay, so what we're going to just do one over here. But a disappearing PowerPoint. Okay, so maybe what I'll do is I'll just show you, because we're looking at what we always see in class, what we get in Steiner beautifully is this, and this is primary school. So here we have our wonderful Jane teaching, and I'll just show you some of this.
12 months in a year, 3 months outside season, summer, autumn, winter, spring. Here we go around the ring. 12 months in a year, 3 months in a season, summer, autumn, winter, spring. Here we go around the ring. 12 months in a year, 3 months in a season, summer, autumn, winter, spring. Here we go around the ring. Stop.
Okay, so this is what we have in our primary schools, which is wonderful. My problem is that once we get into high school, that threefoldness, that engagement that everybody has with the physicality, with the enjoyment of the heart center, and with the intellect, they're all learning the seasons, gets dropped off. And we start just sitting again behind the desk. Now, we want to try in all our schooling to keep this threefoldness, the thinking, the feeling, and the willing. And unfortunately, I'm just going to share with you a quote because I can't bring the PowerPoint up, but I've got it here. What we're trying to do is to create contextual learning environments that use movement to connect to time, to place, and to our emotions. So that is the aim. That's what we're trying to do. We do that by activating. Now, activating is a real verb. We're activating and integrating students' cognitive, emotional, and physical responses. And we do that, all our thinking, our feeling, and our willing. And we do that because the research tells us that it improves well-being, it improves engagement, and it actually improves learning outcomes. So it is a no-brainer. There is no reason not to do it. Now, when we look at how the movement enhances the learning process, if we brought it down to just basic physicality, we know that it enhances brain function. We know that it's setting off more neurons in the brain. It's activating more of our brain. We know it increases circulation, so we know more blood is coming to our brain. We know it refocuses attention, so it gets us really focused on the task at hand. It changes the brain chemically. It actually rewires it because we digest through movement. We process through movement. If we've got a lot of sitting time in class, it gets us up, it breaks it up. It stops it just being a teacher in the front and student here passive. It reduces stress. Any movement will reduce stress. Okay, that's research. It provides a break from sitting down, more what we consider like that head-centered stuff. It just provides a bit of a break. It enhances episodic memory. So that actually recall, like we saw, is enhanced because of it. It provides opportunities for implicit learning, and it provides motivation and meets some of our basic needs. It also helps us differentiate instruction so that we can bring different ways of learning into the classroom. The sensory engagement is there. And finally, the research is there. It tells us. There is no doubt. So I'll just share a quote with you from Hannaford that I think really encapsulates this nicely. And that is, movement is essential to learning. Movement awakens and activates many of our mental capacities. Movement integrates and anchors new information and experiences in our neural networks. And movement is vital to all the actions by which we embody and express our learning, our understanding, and ourselves. So we bring it into our intellect, we bring it into our feeling realm, we bring it into our will, and we are a whole person engaged in our learning. Now, I'm not sure, Virginia, with the time difference, how we've gone now with time.
I think we're just about up, unfortunately.
Okay, so I'd just like to finish with another conclusion here. And a little key, if you're ever looking at how do I move things, go to the verbs, because the verbs are doing words, okay? So they tell you where the action, where the movement, where the process is. And that is in any content that you're looking at, you have your verbs, you have your doing things, you have your processes, and that is what you can move. So we can all jump, leap, run, jump. That's the movement. And I'll just finish with one more quote by Leonore Russell. It is therefore absolutely essential that older adolescent students continue to have movement education and learning experiences that include movement as one component of their work. When thought and feeling are brought together through movement, the eye is able to receive the experience on its own terms and to digest rather than just store up information. This interactive activity makes life and learning more meaningful and imbues strength, self-direction, and purpose in the student. So I hope that I've inspired you a little bit, and if you would love to bring your content and see how we can move it, we have a conference next year that you're all invited to, and we'll be doing a kinesthetic workshop there. So thank you.
Oh, Nicole, thank you so much for what you have brought in such an experiential way. And what a great example of finding the wriggle room, which is one of your core tasks, everybody, for next week. And Nicole, it was wonderful. Robin said right at the beginning, as part of her talk, that presence matters in teaching. And so not only were we literally finding the wriggle room, but we were just being able to observe your presence and how important that presence is and how much it matters in teaching. So thank you so much, Nicole. Really enjoyable. Thank you. And that, we've just rapidly run out of time. We're just a little bit over time, but I'd like to very quickly wrap it up. And Michael might also like to just say some concluding words, but it's been a really amazing journey. Robin started with the provocation and by saying the rhetoric does not match the actuality in what we're doing. What do we do about it? Michael was able to get us a bit deeper in that by saying, well, here's how you can, through coherence. It's through coherence of promoting the core capabilities in young people. And as Steiner people, we were saying, yeah, we do that. But Michael was able to say, well, okay, but what more can you do? Are we really practicing what we preach in terms of coherence building, about coherence of our story and our pedagogy and our leadership and in all that we do? So that was a wonderful provocation. And Talia, in terms of here's what can happen when students have agency and when students are encouraged to build on their strengths. And then we had finding the wiggle room from Nicole. So thank you so much, all the presenters. And Michael, what do you think the key takeaway for you personally has been, or what else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Oh, not much to add to that, Virginia. Just, I mean, we've seen a really interesting journey from kind of a policy to a classroom to a actual classroom analysis. And I think what we saw from Nicole's work is just a thin slither of what's possible, but how that connects up with everything that we do, I think is how we don't just make a kind of embodied learning something that happens in drama or physical education or somewhere like that, but how we actually embed it throughout the life course of a student is really important. And I think that's eminently possible with the things that we've got today. And the only other point that I'd make is that even though we sometimes have policy settings that are a bit oppressive, the possibility for change is ever present. And it comes from our teachers and our students. I notwithstanding the obstacles or the constraints we face, no creative act ever happened without constraint. And so if we think of this as a creative act, transformation as a creative act, bringing these divides together as our creative act, then we will face constraints, but that's often when creativity thrives.
What a wonderful way to finish, Michael. No creative act has happened without constraints.